The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and worry. My twins, barely 3, clung to my legs while the nurse adjusted the 4 in my arm. Surgery in 20 minutes. The kind that could go wrong. I'd asked my parents 3 weeks ago. Begged, really. We're too old for 2 toddlers running circles, Mom had said, voice clipped. Dad just nodded behind her, already turning back to the television. So here we were. Me on the gurney, heart hammering, 2 little boys in dinosaur pajamas staring up with wide, confused eyes, and no one to take them. The door swung open. Grandpa walked in, slow, deliberate, cane tapping once, twice. 87 years old and still taller than most men in the room. He wasn't supposed to be here, the drive from the village took 4 hours and his hips screamed the whole way. Yet here he was, wool coat still dusted with snow, cheeks red from cold. He looked at my mother first. Then my father. Neither met his eyes. Grandpa set the cane against the wall with a soft clack that somehow sounded louder than the monitors. He crouched, painfully, until he was eye level with Amir and Zane. Boys, he said, voice gravel and honey, your mama has to go fix something inside her so she can keep hugging you forever. While she's busy being brave, you're coming with Dad Edgy. Amir's bottom lip trembled. But Nana said. Grandpa's gaze flicked up, sharp, unblinking. Toward my parents. Your Nana and Nanny seem to have forgotten, he said quietly, that when your mother was 4 and her appendix burst in the middle of the night, I carried her 16 kilometers on my back through monsoon mud because the Jeep wouldn't start. I didn't ask if it was convenient. Silence stretched thin and brittle. He stood again, joints popping like dry twigs. Turned fully to face them. I raised your daughter when you both decided university and new friends mattered more than bedtime stories. I changed her diapers, taught her how to ride a bicycle, sat outside her room every night she had nightmares until she was 16. And now, his voice dropped, almost tender in its fury. You think 2 small boys are too much trouble for 6 days? Mom's mouth opened, closed. Color drained from her face. Dad shifted his weight. We just thought. You thought, Grandpa cut in, softer now, deadly soft, that love has an expiration date. Or a limit. It doesn't. He reached down. Amir and Zane each took one of his rough, liver-spotted hands without hesitation. Grandpa looked back at me, his eyes wet, fierce, proud. Go be brave, Beta. I've got them. Then he turned toward the door, 2 tiny shadows glued to his sides, and paused just long enough for my parents to see his face in profile. The look he gave them wasn't anger. It was disappointment so pure it hurt to witness. And in that single heartbeat before the door closed behind him, I saw something crack inside both of them, something that had stayed whole for decades. I closed my eyes as the anesthesiologist asked me to count backward. I didn't need to see their faces anymore. I already knew they would never look the same. Extend Secni 1 in 2,000 words. The hospital room felt smaller every time someone spoke. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like trapped insects, casting a sickly pallor over everything, the white sheets, the metal rails of the bed, the pale faces of my parents standing near the window as though distance could insulate them from what was happening. Amir and Zane, my 3-year-old twins, had stopped asking questions 10 minutes ago. Now they simply pressed against my legs, small fingers knotted in the thin hospital gown, dinosaur pajamas wrinkled from the long morning of waiting. Their warmth was the only thing keeping the cold panic at bay. I had explained the surgery again and again in the weeks leading up to today. Mama has to let the doctors fix a part inside that's making her very sick, I'd said, keeping my voice light, drawing cartoon stomachs on paper with happy little faces. They'd nodded solemnly, then asked if they could bring their stuffed stegosaurus into the operating room. I'd laughed then. I wasn't laughing now. 3 weeks earlier I had driven to my parents' house in Goulburg, the twins asleep in their car seats, the radio turned low so I could rehearse the conversation. Mom opened the door wearing her usual silk kurta, hair perfectly pinned, the faint scent of rose attar drifting out. Dad was already in the living room, newspaper open, reading glasses low on his nose. "I need help," I began, standing in the doorway because they hadn't invited me to sit yet. "The surgery is scheduled for the 21st. They say 6 days in the hospital, maybe 7 if there are complications. I have no one else. The daycare won't take them for that long, and the nanny has family in Karachi that week." Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "We're not as young as we used to be, Syra." "I know. I'm not asking for forever. Just 6 days. They sleep through the night now. They're good boys." Dad folded the newspaper with deliberate slowness. "You should have planned better. Hired someone permanent." "I did plan. I asked you first because they love you. They ask for nanny stories every night." Mom glanced at Dad, then back at me. "We have the bridge club on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Your father's blood pressure has been up. And the house isn't child-proofed anymore. Those boys run like wild things." "They're 3, I said, voice cracking on the last word. "They run because they're happy. Because they feel safe." Silence settled like dust. "We'll send money for a sitter," Dad said finally. "I don't want money. I want someone who knows their favorite blanket is the blue one with stars. Someone who remembers Zayn hates the crusts cut off and Amir needs the light left on in the hallway or he wakes up screaming." Mom turned away, adjusting a vase of wilting lilies on the side table. "We're too old for that kind of responsibility now." I left without another word. The twins woke up halfway home and asked why Mama was crying. I told them the wind had blown dust in my eyes. Now, here in the pre-op room, that conversation replayed in vicious loops while the nurse checked my blood pressure for the 3rd time. 138/92. No surprise. Amir tugged my gown. "Mama, when is Dadaji coming?" My throat closed. I hadn't told them Grandpa was trying to make the drive. I hadn't wanted to promise something that might not happen. The village roads were bad this time of year, rain, mud, fog that rolled down from the hills like smoke. At 87, every kilometer was borrowed time. "I don't know, Beta," I whispered. "Maybe soon." Zayn buried his face against my thigh. "I don't want Mama to go away." "I'm not going away," I lied. "I'm just going to sleep for a little while, and when I wake up I'll be all better and we'll eat ice cream every day for a week." They didn't believe me. Neither did I. My mother cleared her throat from the corner. "We should probably get going soon. Visiting hours end early in recovery." I looked at her, really looked. The woman who used to braid my hair and sing lullabies in Punjabi now stood with arms crossed, purse clutched like a shield. Dad checked his watch. "Again. You're leaving." My voice sounded very small. "We told you we couldn't stay," Mom said. "We have dinner plans with the Ahmeds. We'll call tomorrow to see how it went." The twins tightened their grip. Amir started to cry, quiet, hiccuping sobs that tore something inside my chest. The door opened. Not quietly. Not tentatively. It swung wide, hinges protesting, and cold air rushed in carrying the sharp smell of winter and diesel. Grandpa stood framed in the doorway like a photograph from another era. Wool coat buttoned to the throat, muffler wound tight, cane gripped in his right hand. Snowflakes still clung to the shoulders and melted slowly into dark spots on the gray fabric. His face was flushed from the 4-hour drive, eyes bright with something fiercer than fatigue. He didn't speak at first. He simply scanned the room, Amir and Zayn clinging to me on the gurney with an 4 dripping, my parents frozen near the window like guilty statues. Then he moved. Each step deliberate, cane tapping the linoleum once, twice, 3 times. The sound cut through the monitor beeps and the low murmur of nurses in the hallway. When he reached the foot of my bed he stopped, leaned the cane against the rail, and lowered himself, slowly, painfully, until he was kneeling at the twins' level. Amir and Zayn stared, tears forgotten, mouths slightly open. Grandpa's voice, when it came, was low and warm, the way it always was when he told stories under the neem tree back in the village. "Assalamu alaikum, my lions." "Wa alaikum assalam, Dadaji," they whispered together. He smiled, small, tired, but real. "I heard you've been very brave today. Waiting in this cold room. Not running. Not shouting. Just waiting for Mama." Zayn nodded solemnly. Amir wiped his nose on his sleeve. Grandpa reached out, brushed a curl from Amir's forehead with one gnarled thumb. "Your mama has to be brave now too. The doctors need to fix something so she can chase you around the garden again. While she's doing that hard thing, you're going to come home with me. To the village. We'll feed the chickens. We'll make parathay with extra ghee. And every night I'll tell you the story of how your mama once climbed the mango tree and got stuck until the neighbor's buffalo had to help her down." A tiny, watery giggle escaped Amir. Grandpa's gaze lifted then, slowly, deliberately, until it locked on my mother. She flinched as though slapped. Then on my father. Dad looked at the floor. "Your Nana and Nanny," Grandpa said quietly, still looking at the boys but speaking to the room, "seem to have very important dinners to attend. Very important bridge games. Very important reasons why two small boys who smell like baby shampoo and trust are too much trouble." Silence again, thicker this time. He rose, joints cracking audibly, and turned fully toward them. "I remember another hospital," he said. 34 years ago. Syra was 4. Appendix ruptured at 2 in the morning. No phone. No car that would start in the rain. I carried her 16 kilometers on my back through mud that sucked at my shoes. She burned with fever. I sang the same lullaby over and over so she wouldn't cry. When we reached the clinic the doctor said 10 more minutes and she would have left us. He paused, letting the words settle. I didn't ask if it was convenient. I didn't check my calendar. I just carried my child. Mom's hand rose to her throat. Dad's shoulders hunched. I changed every diaper when you both were too busy with evening classes and new friends. I sat up when she had fever, when she had nightmares about the dark, when she cried because the other girls at school said her lunchbox was old-fashioned. I taught her how to read Urdu poetry before she could ride a bicycle properly. And when she married your son-in-law, may Allah rest his soul, I stood at her side because you were on a cruise in Thailand. His voice never rose. It didn't need to. And now, he continued, softer, almost gentle, you look at these two boys. Your blood, your daughter's heart walking around on 2 legs, and you decide 6 days is too much. That love has terms and conditions. That it expires when the knees start to ache. Mom opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Dad shifted. Abba, we. You thought, Grandpa interrupted, calm as still water, that time owed you rest. That sacrifice was a one-time payment. It isn't. He looked back at the twins. Held out both hands. Amir took the right without hesitation. Zayn took the left a second later, small fingers curling around the thick, scarred knuckles. Grandpa turned to me. His eyes were wet, shining, but steady. Go, Beta, he said. Let them fix what's broken. I've got your lions. They'll be waiting when you wake up. Then he started toward the door, the boys walking beside him in perfect step, tiny dinosaurs on either side of an old lion. At the threshold he paused. Not for dramatic effect. Just long enough for my parents to see his profile. The deep lines carved by decades of choosing duty over comfort, the quiet strength that had carried 3 generations now. He didn't glare. He didn't accuse. He simply looked at them with the kind of disappointment that doesn't shout, doesn't curse, doesn't need words at all. It simply exists, pure, heavy, irreversible. Something in my mother's face fractured. Her mouth trembled. A single tear slipped free and she didn't wipe it away. Dad stared at the floor as though it might open and swallow him. The door closed with a soft click. The room felt suddenly larger. Emptier. The anesthesiologist stepped forward, mask in hand. Time to count backward, Syra. From 10. I closed my eyes. 10. I pictured Grandpa's coat still dusted with snow. 9. Amir's giggle when he mentioned the buffalo. 8. The way Zane's fingers had curled so trustingly around those old, strong hands. 7. My parents' faces. Shattered in a way no apology could ever repair. 6. I didn't need to see them again to know the truth. 5. Love doesn't expire. 4. It simply waits, patient, stubborn, eternal, until someone remembers how to carry it. 3. I smiled, small and secret. 2. Grandpa had them. 1. And that was enough. Darkness came gently, like a blanket drawn over a sleeping child.